Hello YouTube, new program review today, and we're working on Lauren's program. And he actually wrote a rather lengthy paragraph about his goals and what he envisions for the future and what he's done in the past. And that's good because it actually gives me a good idea of what I need to critique in your program. So for this one, we might do two parts, we'll see, because I need to get through his introduction first. So he tells me that the problem is going to look strange, and he explains that he was a very good calisthenic athlete, so that he has a very strong upper body. That tends to be the case for the most part for guys who come from street workouts, because there is a large discrepancy between how much they train their legs and how much they train their upper body. And when you look at the potential for size and strength of the lower body, how much tonnage you can move, you see that by only training the upper body, you're going to accumulate a depth tonnage that is quite immense, because if you just don't train your biceps, for example, you're going to have to deal with the issue of having small biceps and having to catch up. But if you compound all of the days where you skipped bicep training, you didn't really accumulate that much tonnage because the biceps are relatively weak. For the legs, however, every single squat session you skipped when you were a gym bro and you were doing only upper body, yeah, that's a lot of weight that you have to now make up for. And so that for people who actually specialize in calisthenics is going to happen, because if you want to be really good at calisthenics, you need smaller legs. So it's his case. And he also tells me he's short-limbed and he has a narrow frame. He wants to maintain his calisthenic strength. Okay, so already that's going to be a little bit difficult, at least in the short term, because you will find that your legs are going to grow fast, and as they grow, they load your movements on the calisthenic movements. So the maintenance phase is going to be tough in the first few months to a year. Over time, you might be able to readjust your strength and be just as strong or stronger, but you're going to have to sacrifice some strength to start with. He tells me he was able to do 30 clean pull-ups in a contest, which is a lot of pull-ups, which also dictates that for you, any vertical pull you're going to do in a bodybuilding setting need to be weighted because you're already way too strong at them. And he wants to obtain the classic bodybuilding look like Lee Lebrada or Frank Zane, which, lucky for you, these guys had good legs. I'm not saying they had bad legs, but they didn't really focus on tree trunk legs. It wasn't their aesthetic, it's not the aesthetic of that time period. They had medium legs. So it's not like you're going to have to go all the way from relatively short, skinny legs to massive tree trunks. So that's good, and also because it's going to mean that you're going to be able to still focus on upper body development. He does 2 sessions a day sometimes because time is not really a problem in his period of his life, which is great. But if you have a lot of time on your hands because you're a student or something, enjoy it. Those periods of time don't last, so enjoy it while you can. And it's easier for him mentally. That makes a ton of sense. Some people like to have long sessions, like me. I'm in the gym, my mind switches off and I just train. I don't even think about the time, I don't see the time passing. 4 hours for me is like a blink. Some people don't like that. It's a difference in mental stamina and the way you can apply yourself. And I'm not saying that being more endurance is better, because people like me who are like diesel, and those people are like, what is the name of that? Just fuel, meaning that they can get started quick, they can get intense quick, but they run out of endurance quick. People like me, we need a lot of time to be warmed up, which is why the sessions need to be longer. Anything he does is strict form, 3 seconds negative, control, and as much range of motion as possible. That's great. I would tell you to not let yourself be sucked into the mindset of I'm only going to train this way, because you're going to limit yourself. But for injury prevention and overall quality training, this is a good approach. He runs an upper split, okay, so still a focus on the upper. So he hits upper body 3 times a week and lower body 2 times. Okay, so you train 5 times a week. He trains in strength and conditioning CrossFit gyms because he has a coach here, and he doesn't have access to cables machines, which it's not an issue. He has dumbbells, barbells, bands, pull-ups, D-bar, weight belt, weights, and a couple of lower back thing implements. So he details the dumbbells, etc. He's been lifting for 5-6 years from calisthenic only days. He can handle higher volume, which is important to know, longer sessions. but he really likes intensity, and that's fine. I preach about the values of intensity, frequency, and volume. These three will exist regardless of what you do, and they need to be taken into account. But you will find that you might have a liking, you might develop an affinity to one of them, either because mentally it feels good or because you get the best results. If it's frequency, train 2 times a day, every day. That's perfectly fine. If it's volume, do 5-hour training sessions. I'm exaggerating, of course, but do longer training sessions. If it's intensity, cram the walking sessions in shorter periods of time and work in accumulating tonnage in higher windows. Of course, it needs to be aligned with your injury prevention practices, but that's fine. There is no one practice that works. As long as the 3 principles are applied, it works. And what matters the most in bodybuilding is consistency. So if it's something you will do for the next 10 years, it's better than something that will burn you out in 3 months. Okay. So he does AMRAPs on most of his sets, which, by the way, when I talk about doing more of a high intensity style, I basically mean that you stick with lower rep ranges and you don't multiply the reps as much. Okay, so he wants my opinion about the way he applies that intensity in his training. He gives me his big 3 numbers. So he squats 140 kilos, benches 110, and deadlifts 180. And he tells me that he's past in his new begin phase. I would advise people to not base that off of their strength number because, and I will make a video about novice phase and the novice programs, but it can mess you up in terms of programming. Okay, and he wants to see what works for him to achieve his dream physique. And when he doesn't mention the exercise rep ranges, he just goes by feel with higher reps. Anything that puts the muscle in a lengthened position gives him a good pump, not focused on progression. I'm going to see how much you apply that logic in the program. If I see too much of a percentage, I'm going to knock that off. Because going by feel sometimes is okay, but I can tell you that you need to push progression on everything because at some point, the progress is going to be so slow that any carryover and trickle down gains you can get, you need to secure. Okay, so let's see how he applies all of that introduction within his training principles. Monday, upper body, and he starts with the barbell bent over rows. Not against that per se. I have said in the past that the barbell bent over row can really go anywhere, but that putting it in the upper body days can be beneficial because you're not tired from deadlifts or squats, so you can really put it your all. 4 sets of 8 to 10, that's higher rep ranges, so it's good for the rows. And then barbell bench, 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. Okay, that's not an issue. Technically, if you want it, I don't usually advise people superset their strength work. You can superset here. Those 2 lifts if you want it, you can try. Just to experiment it, you will find that you don't lose any strength. He does 4 sets of 6 to 8s on the barbell bench. That's a good rep range as well. No problem with that. And you'll see that with that type of evolving rep range where you give yourself a room of 2 reps for 4 sets, you are going to repeat muscular hindrances that sometimes might match. You might get 10-10, 9-8. You might get 10-9, 9-8, etc. That's not an issue. I know that I preach against sandbagging, but if it's one set with 1 rep that somehow sneaks in and matches the previous set, that tends to be okay for higher rep ranges. It becomes an issue with lower rep ranges because you understand that if you do 12 reps and you get 12 on the first set and 12 on the second, you might have underestimated the weight you needed for the first set. But if you get 10 on the second set and 10 on the third, that might just be that the rep range is so large that the first 10 reps you got was on the verge of being too easy, and the second 10 reps you got was on the verge of being too hard. But if you do 5 reps and you can get 5 reps afterwards, you see that the intensity window is now so much higher that it doesn't really make sense that you're able to replicate the effort. I will make a full video about that because it's important to control your intensity, to actually take a look at the rep range. So that makes total sense. And he supersets his bench, I think. No, I think that's a superset on the side. So he does lateral raises, 10 to 15 reps, superset with band-aid face pulls, 10 to 15 reps, which I think that's it. That's your superset. That's a great superset. You're going to really feel the real delt when you do your face pulls, so that's good. Because some people, their traps take over. I'm the example of that. My traps take over on face pulls. So I need to pre-fatigue the area of the scapular belt that is stealing the work from the real delt to fill it on face pulls. After that, he does barbell overhead press. I am a big fan of barbell overhead press after bench. And the application I would do it here, and I think you already do that, is it's strength folk as well, so you don't superset it. Barbell overhead press, 3 sets, 6 to 8 reps, good. Vertical press, you could be doing more volume if you wanted, but it's good. You could superset that with chin-ups if you wanted, because you told me that you want to maintain your fitness on pull-ups. So that's a good place to put pull-ups. And don't weight them here, just do as many reps as possible with body weight, because the barbell bent over rows already took care of the intensity for the upper back. And then he does arms, he goes by feel on the exercise, usually a superset for sets of 12 to 20. Okay, so this is what I thought when I saw what you wrote. I don't like that approach. If you want to build a classic physique, these guys had really good arms. And the way you develop really good arms as a natural is to progressively overload. You cannot go by feel. You need to apply the same principles. I know that we like to have our lifts where we take the reps and we note them down and we progressively overload. And then we have lifts where it's just for the pump, for fun. You can think like this, but not for entire movement patterns. You cannot have all of your curls take place in that fun space. Most of them need to be within rep ranges, within relevant intensity windows, lower than what you're doing, much higher, than what you're doing here. 12 to 20 reps is too much for biceps. I will tell you that right now. I know it's against the bodybuilding culture. Do it 6 to 10 reps. If you're really advanced, I personally do 3 to 7 reps on biceps for people who are advanced. You need to push heavy weight. You need to have a balance of intensity and volume. And what I see you doing here is too much volume. You're going for the pump. Modify that. You can keep one movement of bicep that you just do for as many reps as possible to get a good filling and contraction, but it needs to be the exception, not the rule. So on that day, what I can tell is I see you focusing a lot on compounds, and that's not an issue, but this obsession needs to come from the understanding that compounds are the best way to drive tonnage. Not necessarily that you need compounds. The qualities of compounds is what makes them attractive. On that day, you're working the chest, you're working the shoulders, and you're working the portions of the upper back and of the posterior chain. That's good. Understand that for something like the traps, for something like the forearms, that day is not enough, okay? So I'm not saying you modify the day, I'm just saying there is space, meaning that I see potential for more exercises here, and upper body days need to be lengthier than the lower body days. So if you have body parts that are lagging, this is where they go. This is where you superset them. You have one lateral raise and bended face pull superset, slap another one in. Tuesday, so let's look at the lower body day. Barbell back squats, 4 sets of 6 to 8, great rep range. Dumbell reverse lunges or bulgarian split squats. Here he gives me 3 variations. I usually would say that 3 variations on the same day is too much, meaning that 3 rotations that can take place on the same day tend to be too much if they represent the same set. But here it's an exception because the movements utilized here are going to be so out there in terms of specificity by themselves that rotating them with other lifts that might not be extremely similar is not a problem at all, because you want the stimulus more than you want the carryover to the main lift. So that's fine. You will see that certain lifts work much better with that type of mindset. A squat, for example, works very well like this. A bench, no, meaning that if someone told me he does flies as an accessory for the bench, I tell them, look, I mean, you'll get a bigger chest, but it's not really going to carry over to the bench much. But the squat is pretty much self-sufficient. Same for the deadlift. There are movements that can grow themselves in a way, meaning that you can grow your deadlifts by doing deadlifts. You can grow your squats by doing squats. And you can do post squats, post deadlifts, but a bench at some point, doing only bench and post bench gets old and you won't be able to progress anymore. So the range of variation varies. Okay, so he does this stuff and he changes them every 8 to 12 weeks, which is a practice of rotation I'm personally not a big fan of because it looks like a block. But again, for these exercises, I don't see an issue with it. He does 3 sets of 16 to 24 reps, so that's a lot, but the explanation is because he does 8 to 12 reps per leg, so that actually makes sense. And because these are not really going to be super taxing on the lungs and heart, it's not going to be limited by the cardiovascular system. After that, he does stiff-legged Romanian deadlift. Okay, I really like when I see people say stiff-legged Romanian deadlift because every time I see someone say they do Romanian deadlift, they're actually doing a stiff leg. So okay, you're doing that variation. It's a good stretch on the hamstrings and the lower back, and a very good complement to the barbell back squat as well. 4 sets of 8 to 10, excellent rep range for that lift. Hamstring curls after that. And he tells me he has a weird setup because he doesn't have the machine, he uses bands. I would say in that case to just ditch them. Don't do them. I mean, unless you really like them, you already get the stretch component from the stiff leg. So just focus all of your efforts on the stiff leg. And I would say, if you like the hamstring curls with a band, I personally like them, do them on an off day. Do them on a rest day. You're not going to hurt your recovery, you're going to actually boost it. So that type of stuff can just go. Then he does a superset for the legs, for lower back plus abs. So he doesn't tell me which exercises. I hope you do back hyperextensions and then leg raises, which for people who have back problems, back issues, back pains, that's the golden combo. Do back hyperextensions, then go do your leg raises. It's going to decompress the spine. It's going to also really help with the health of the hips. I will make a full video on back hyperextensions. They also tend to teach you how to pull with the legs when you deadlift. And he tells me calves, forearms, and neck that they are pretty big for his frame, so he's not interested in growing them, but will be in the future. Well, he asked me for rep ranges for the future, but forearms, do some wrist flexion on an upper or lower day, regardless of what you want to do. Start with 1, then grow to 2 times a week, then maybe add a variation here and there. Calves are easy, they're dumb. The calves are the dumbest body part. You just do calf raises and they grow. And I started training them seriously at the start of this year, and at first I was lacking faith, so they weren't growing. And at some point I just said, you know what, just do it. And they grew an inch by just doing calf raises and progressively overloading, of course, but it's so boring that most people can't even get themselves to do it. So that's what I would say too. Just find variations of calf raises that you like, that agree with you, and overload them, do lots of volume, do it 3 times a week. For the neck, same logic, neck curls. I have a full video on the neck if you want to check it out. So for that day, I see a good focus on compound movements with the Romanian deadlift and the barbell back squat. I see some movements that complement them, and I really have nothing to say about that day. I would say, however, that with your ability to recover when it comes to upper back work, I want to see upper back movements every single day, whether in the form of horizontal rows, in the forms of shrugs, or in the forms of pull-ups. So on that day, I want to see pull-ups, and guess what? You're not training upper back on that day. So you're going to do weighted pull-ups on that day, on Tuesday. And you're also going to get shrugs. Get your shrugs in somewhere in the program. You can superset the stiff-legged Romanian deadlift with shrugs, and you don't even have to change the weight. That's the beauty. Do your stiff-legged deadlift at the end of the set, stand up, squeeze your glutes, and do shrugs. That way, you don't even have to have a different bar. And for the weighted pull-ups, you could literally superset the weighted pull-ups with the dumbbell, walking, and reverse lunges. You could just have them as a last set where you also do your hamstring curls if you want to keep those. You can have them before the lower back and abs. They go everywhere. Wednesday, he does rest, light cardio, and rehab work. And I do see here that, unless I'm mistaken, I hope I'm not missing a day, but I hope you will see that, because we're going to stop here. But you did tell me, if I am not mistaken, that you train five times a week. Where did I see that? You say I hit upper body 3 times a week and lower body 2 times. But in the template you showed me here, I only see Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday being written down. I don't see Saturday or Sunday. So I suppose that you must be doing some upper body work on Sunday or Saturday. Lawrence, let me know. I'm going to have to stop here, but this is pretty much what I have for you today. I see that on Thursday you also do weighted pull-ups, and you might tell me that it's the reason why you're not doing them on Tuesday. I can tell you that with your level, you will have recovered by Thursday. You just need to change the grip, just to avoid injury. Just change the grip. But I'm going to stop here. I'm going to finish this video next week. I think that it would greatly beneficiate from you giving me more information. So I hope you see that video before next week. I will pin your comment, and I will continue the work and finish your program with you when that day comes. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.